Okay guys, I know how hard it can be to find good clothes, and it seems like everywhere you look, all these stores are popping up with killer clothing, like the absolute top tier stuff, but for some reason they only have women's clothes. I'm looking at you, ThreadUp. But there's still some great online stores to look for high quality stuff that isn't going to make you sell a kidney to be able to buy it. But before we get into that, a quick disclosure. No, I am not a fashion designer. I'm just a normal guy like you that likes fashion but didn't know where to start. And if you're a person that doesn't care how much clothing costs and you like designer stuff, well, this video really isn't for you. But if you want clothing that is quality, that will last a long time, and doesn't cost a ridiculous amount of money, then here is where you want to look. So for thrifted stuff, number one, Depop is one of the best. They typically have thrifted, retro, vintage style clothes. So if you're looking for something thrifted in basically any style, specifically graphics and streetwear, this is where you'd want to look first. They typically have reasonable prices, depending on what kind of piece you're looking for, and probably in terms of price, I would give them somewhere around a 3 out of 10. They are also running a Labor Day sale, which is 40% off some name brand items, so if you're interested in that, go and check it out. So Poshmark is also another great option. Most people nowadays know what Poshmark is for, and it is pretty useful at finding quality clothes for relatively affordable prices. However, considering a lot of the stuff that they sell is used and sometimes very used, I can't recommend it as like the first place you should look, but it is pretty versatile and you can pretty much find anything you're looking for on there if you look long enough. The downside though is that with all the fees and the shipping costs, etc. that go on with purchasing an item from there, sometimes you have to pay more in fees and shipping than in the actual cost of the item itself. So just for that reason, I have to give it a 4 out of 10. By the way, this scale is in terms of what's the most expensive and what's the least. 10 is the most expensive and 1 is the least. So Pinterest is one of my favorites, and it's the best at finding items that you're specifically looking for. If you're looking for a style or a type of clothing or a specific look, this is exactly where you'll find it. Most pins link to clothing directly and can give you a good representation of how it will look on you, but prices can be a large range. You can find high-end luxury stuff. You can also find stuff that people just threw together on their own. So it's really hard to say how much the average price of something is going to be, but for general purposes, I'll just give it a 5 out of 10 because it can really go either way. All right, so ThreadUp. I know I just said it was mainly women's clothing. They don't really carry a lot of men's stuff. And really this is an honorable mention just because they have so much good stuff on there, but this won't work for all body types. So I have to keep it in like an honorable mention category. But for those that are more lean, you can often find women's clothing that sometimes can fit for men's body types. And in terms of cost, this is probably just about in line with Depop, and it has tons of options, so I have to give it about the same at around 3 out of 10. So this section wouldn't make sense if I didn't include Goodwill. This one's relatively obvious, but for the purpose of this video, I have to mention it as one of the best for finding vintage, thrifted, used clothes, but you're going to have to spend a lot of time looking through things, going through the racks to be able to find something that will actually work. But this all really depends on what you're looking for and what your style is, or mainly what your look is that you're going for. In terms of price, this has to be the cheapest at 2 out of 10. Sometimes it can be expensive, but very rarely. So I would keep this on the lower end, the cheaper side for sure, but there's always going to be quality pieces there. You just won't have to pay a ridiculous amount of money for it. All right, now moving on to the anything and everything category. Okay, so I'm putting these in the same category because they're kind of fundamentally the same thing. Here's the thing. I'm not passing judgment here. I know Shein or Charlie Sheen or whatever is the boogeyman in the fashion industry, and Temu is the new guy, but they both really are just fast fashion at pretty cheap prices. You can find pretty much anything and everything at these stores, but in terms of quality, they tend to lack quite a bit, and they'll tend to be lower on average than most of the stores listed in this video. But since most of you are guys, and you probably will wear clothing until they fall apart or blow up or implode or whatever, then you don't really have to worry so much about the fast fashion problem problems where people just buy clothing, wear them once, and then get rid of them, but just be conscious about it. So I'm gonna give both of these stores a 2 out of 10. I think they're about in line with Goodwill sometimes, but sometimes they could be more expensive. It really depends. So for old money and classics, this is my favorite category. So this is where I find clothes that I like the most personally, and you'll find a lot of the style that I represent mainly on my Instagram, and you can go and check out the different kinds of stuff that I wear typically, and they mostly come from places like this. So Old Navy gets slept on way too much. They're constantly top tier, they're not super expensive, and they have really good quality stuff in a large range of products. And you can get super good quality stuff there without having to go into debt to buy a t-shirt. So they have tons of good stuff, pants and chinos that I like a lot, which tend to fit for a lot of the classic looks. And I'll have to give them probably around a 4 out of 10 on price. H&M is definitely another option. Now I haven't shopped here a lot, but the times that I have has been surprisingly high quality for the price. You'll find a pretty wide range of stuff here, but normally you can find more normal, casual to business casual kind of stuff. They do also have some old money-esque items here every once in a while. You just have to be on the lookout for them. They're about the same price as Old Navy, probably around a 4 out of 10. So Huyi is a store that I just kind of recently found out about, but it's kind of refreshing because they have clothing from other cultures and made from different materials. And it's always really interesting when you can find something that is pretty unique, at least for the American fashion. I recently got a few old money style clothing from them, a few tops, some pants, a lot of linen stuff. It was a little bit hit or miss on sizing, but I can't really dock them any points for that because pretty much all online shopping is like that these days. They are also a 4 out of 10 on price. Okay, while I talk about the next stores, I'm gonna take some photos for Instagram really quick, kind of some more chill stuff today. I just gotta stay active and keep posting. So for streetwear, there are tons of different places you can buy stuff from. Aeropostale has actually recently come out with some pretty cool stuff. I've always struggled to find some good graphic tees and hoodies and stuff like that. Most people are going to tell you that you have to thrift stuff like this, but I've actually come across a ton of good stuff from Aeropostale recently. I haven't looked a ton into their pants and their other bottoms, but I'm sure if they're as good quality as the tops, they're probably pretty good too. They are slightly more expensive on average than something like Depop would be, but not by much, so I'll still give them a 5 out of 10. So ASOS has got to be hands down one of my favorites historically. I bought tons of stuff from ASOS over the years. They've been one of, if not my favorite stores to find different kinds of clothing without having to spend a ton of money. Think of them kind of like Kohl's or Macy's for clothing all over the world. You can pretty much find anything here. I will have to say though, quality can vary quite a bit. It really depends on whether you're getting like the ASOS brand stuff or if you're getting like a name brand. So you really have to be a bit more diligent on that, and keep in mind the refund policies for clothing tend to be around 30 days, between like 14 and 30 days. So just keep that in mind. I'd say they're squarely around 3 out of 10 on price. But aside from them, honorable mention for these two, however, Zumiez and Hot Topic are the typical classic skater in the mall type stores, but they do still have some great stuff when it comes to graphic tees and hoodies, sometimes pants, but not so much, and shoes for sure. If you're someone that likes streetwear, these aren't the ones that I would choose first personally, but I wouldn't really write them off before you give them a chance and check what they have. Both of these, however, sometimes can demand mall prices, so I'm gonna have to give them a 4 out of 10. They're not always the most expensive, but sometimes they can be. Okay, so these are the places that I would check out for each of these styles, but keep in mind that pretty much any of these stores can have the items that you're looking for in whatever style. You may also find what you're looking for at the other stores, even if it's not listed under your particular style category. You just have to be diligent in finding what you're looking for. You know, clothes shopping can take some time, but if you know where to look, you can definitely save a lot of the headache. Now, I have to say, this channel is not specifically going to be fashion related or style related or anything like that, because there are a ton of those online already, but it is a large facet of what I do and what a lot of people are part of these days. But I will still do some more of these kind of videos because they're something that I enjoy. They just aren't going to be the main focus of this channel in the long run, but they are going to be the style of video that I continue to do every once in a while when somebody requests something like that, or if I feel like it's probably something that people would be looking for. But if you have any stores that I may have overlooked or forgotten about, leave it in the comments. Lastly, if you have any questions about fashion or your own appearance or style, etc., anything like that, feel free to leave it in the comments. I will respond to a lot of them. And then also, if you want to get to me directly, you can follow me on Instagram and I will respond to DMs every once in a while. And I tend to be a little bit more active when it comes to DMs/comments on there. So feel free to follow. But anyways, I hope it helps.